Well, let's stay with the country's power crisis. Eskom saying it has managed to improve its energy availability factor from 54.56% to just over 61% over the past 3 months. The company will need to get to 70% to eliminate the threat of load shedding. The Eskom CEO Dan Morokane is my guest this evening. He joins me in studio now. Mr. Morokane, good evening to you, and thank you for your time.
Good evening, Toli, and good evening to the viewers at home.
Good to see you in person, sir. Let's start with the 100 consecutive days of no load shedding. How did Eskom achieve this?
Look, I mean, we've always said that what you're seeing now is really a result of concerted efforts from multiple streams. But basically, the results today find their origin in the implementation of the Generation Recovery Plan since last year, March. This activity entailed a number of work streams within the business, focusing on the operations and maintenance practices, skilling of our people, facilities and finances being available for planning for maintenance in advance, collaboration with others through the NECOM processes, reinvesting in our people in terms of uplifting staff morale, and providing the leadership in terms of executing the plans that we had. So we had plans and we just focused on working the plans. You'll recall that last summer we did up to 9 gigawatts of maintenance, the highest percentage ever. And we said so that we're doing this to ensure that we have a much more comfortable winter. The results we are seeing are an outcome of that intervention here.
You talk about winter. We are in the middle of the winter season.
Yep.
How big is the risk of power cuts at a time like this?
We have not revised the forecast that we shared at the end of April. And that forecast basically said we needed to stay below 14,000 of unplanned outages for us to reduce the intensity and frequency of load shedding. And we said in the unlikely event where the unplanned outages increases to 15,500 megawatts, we could see up to stage 2 of load shedding. Yeah. Performance to date has been exceptional. We've reported repeatedly over every week that we're now averaging about 12,000 megawatts of unplanned outages. This is what has helped us to really stay out of load shedding. And we have done this without spending in excess of our planned diesel budgets. In fact, we've cut back on our diesel expenditure by some 67% year on year. Yeah.
How confident are you that we can breeze through this winter season without seeing load shedding? Can you say that as a fact?
We need to keep the unplanned outages below 14,000. We are doing that. We need to remain vigilant as a country and manage our demand. Tonight is one of the coldest nights. Tomorrow will be colder as well. We're urging our customers to remember to use electricity very sparingly. We know that in some areas we are also beginning to see risks associated with overloading, especially from illegal connections. Those that's got the potential to really hurt the equipment that we have. As long as we continue down this path, everybody doing their bit, we should see the risk of load shedding really, really low. Yeah.
So as things stand, energy availability factor stand at just above 61%. We need to get to that 70% that assures us that we steer clear of load shedding. How far are we then between this 61% and that all-important 70%?
Yeah, totally. I just want to explain to you the 61% is the average year to date. So you'll agree with me that tonight, with this current code, what matters is the energy availability factor today. Today, we just clocked under 68% energy availability. Today, we had 6 of our stations performing at 70% and above. This is the quality of the work that the teams have been doing, that we're seeing these incremental benefits. Of course, if it stays higher this way, the average for year to date will increase as well. And this is what we are saying. We're keeping our heads down. We're focusing on the implementation programs that we have, and we should see the entire fleet's average coming up as the year progresses. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So I know that you've been a very busy man, shuffling between the power stations. The word discipline has been used.
Yeah.
It certainly was used by the chairperson last week when I listened to him on a radio station. Talk to us about that discipline as you visit the power stations. What is it that is changing about the attitudes of these 40,000 energy, or should I say, Eskom workers?
Clearly, I came in at the beginning of March to really reinforce the leadership cohort that exists within the business. First, the board led by Dr. Mteto, a very able EXCO team. Generation is led by Becky. He arrived the year before me. Becky has worked very well with a number of power station managers. We've moved them around to ensure that we match their competencies to the complexity of the power stations that are dealing with. We have very energized managers below them. We've got the right support from other structures that we are using. We are a team. And we continue to really emphasize the importance of doing what we said we're going to do and sticking to our plans. That's really the magic here. We're doing what we said, we're sticking to our plans, we're doing course corrections where the things are not working correctly as anticipated. We are very agile. We have all the support that we need. Government has been great in terms of ensuring that we have the finances to do so, but we've also removed the red tape in some instances where we needed decisions much more faster. Yeah. This is a country project. This is a country project, and we have to really embed it and take this way of working to the next challenge that really has to be tackled. Yeah.
You're not going to escape me that easily. You've already breezed through this EAF part. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, today we sit at 68% energy availability factor, but I guess the key is sustenance. Yeah. How do you maintain that and keep that 68 and push it even further to that 70 that we need? How do you maintain then, once you get to that 70% mark of energy availability factor, how do you maintain that so that we don't experience load shedding?
So the turnaround that's really happening within the generation business as part of the recovery plan is actually a move towards a new way of working. We're not doing this as a project and then going back to the old ways of doing things. We're changing the way the business works, and that is what's going to bring about sustainability. The ways of working, the routines of O&Ms, the strategies that we use. I'll give you a practical example. We've identified what the pain points were in some of our systems. We have agreed that those systems are best served and managed for us and serviced by OEMs. Yeah. This is a fundamental position that we have taken. It remains in place going forward. We continue to look at other areas that are paining us, bad actors, and we'll make calls about how to change the way in which we're doing them so that we can have a sustainable business going forward. So we're changing the way we're doing things, and we'll end up with a new way of working. Yeah.
When you talk about the OEMs, the viewer may not know it. Yeah. It's the original equipment manufacturers. So what are you saying? Are you saying that you are buying those faulty parts from those original equipment manufacturers? How helpful are they at times when perhaps the workers at Eskom at a particular plant, they need help with, I guess, fitting that part? Describe this relationship between yourselves and the OEMs.
No, our going back to OEMs is to ensure that we have the best people to service the equipment that they have manufactured themselves. This is like you taking your car to your, the appropriate brand dealer to fix it. Yeah. We have to do that to ensure that when work is done right the first time, and the quality thereof lasts over a longer period. Of course, there are areas where we don't necessarily have to be working with OEMs. We've identified critical systems that are hurting us, that can benefit from that engagement. And we are seeing the results. This is what you are seeing driving the increase in the EAF as you're observing at the moment. We need to do more of this, go through the systems, and that is what's going to lead to sustainability.
So here's a contentious part. Diesel expenditure. Yeah. Financial Times reporting recently that Eskom is expected to publish its financial results where losses of 15 billion rand will likely be announced because of the spend on diesel. Is that report True.
Look, Chloe, and I went back to check what we said as an organization last year when we did the interim results. When we did the interim results last year, the final results, we indicated that at the rate at which we were burning diesel then, we anticipated that the final year results will be as negative as what we were presenting at the time. Our P&L is not very complex. We have to make electricity and sell it. So if we load shedding, we've got no sales anywhere close to where we want them to be. But what is also painful is that when we load shedding, we're ending up having to use diesel to reduce the intensity of the stages of load shedding. Diesel is quite expensive. So if we manage our bill of diesel by actually having a higher EAF and producing more electricity, we start correcting and repairing our P&L statement. The results that you are talking about pertain to last year. You'll recall that last year was one of the worst years in terms of intensity and frequency of load shedding. So that's really what's coming out of that process. Yeah. Let's talk about now. We are into the third month of our 4 months of winter. We have not load shed. We have saved already 6 billion rands year on year in comparison to last year from our diesel expenditure. If we continue down this trajectory, and I've said to you already that diesel hurts us, if we continue down this trajectory, we'll actually be in a much more better financial position going forward. This is the recovery that we want to see. Yeah. Better performance from our fleet, less expenditure on diesel, will keep the rest of the cost in check, and we should be in a much more healthier position. Yeah.
You'll forgive me here for insisting on this. I'm just a journalist. Yeah. 33 billion is what was spent on diesel last year. Yeah. If you agree, I'm happy because it means my numbers are correct. Yeah. And then out of that is this 15 billion that is now expected to be the losses that are suffered by Eskom, stemming from that 33. Yeah. Is that what we are talking about?
I'll help you with that. In fact, in the prior year, we spent about 27 billion rands in diesel, and the losses that we reported last year were about 23 billion rands. So 33 billion rands of expenditure in the last year, take or less. We're still doing the final auditing. If we come in even at 15 billion rands, it will be a year-on-year improvement from that loss. Our point is that we should find ourselves not being vulnerable to having to spend diesel, and that way, and the only way to do so is to ensure that our generation performance improves. This is why we've been so obsessed with improving our EAF performance. The results that we are seeing now are geared towards changing, our financial position as well.
How do you address a skeptic who says, you're saying you've saved 6.2 billion in this diesel spend, whilst at the same time, you are going to be reporting losses of 15 billion.
Yeah, look,
balance that equation.
There's what we call financial years. We are in financial year 25. That started in April to now. We have consistently reported that this year, beginning April to now, we have actually not load shed, and we have reported every Friday. We give you results in terms of what our expenditure is relative to budget and how it compares year on year. The numbers that we're talking about are for the year that ended March 2024. That started April 2023. So we're talking 2 separate years here. Yeah.
All right. When we promote this interview, of course, we put it on social media. And one of the people there is quite curious about, to whom do we buy this diesel from? Where does Eskom procure this diesel?
Look, we have a number of suppliers for diesel, and I think our service providers have been there for the last 2 years. We can provide that information. We have repeatedly actually been asked for this information, even in Parliament. We've named them previously. We can make them public. We run a very open process in the space. We should perform in a manner that makes us not to have to spend money on diesel. And I can tell you now, you can check and poll them. Our diesel suppliers are actually feeling the pain in terms of the level of consumption that we are using here and there. It's good for our business, but what's more important is that we should really have our fleet working for us, which is what we're working on.
Yeah. Okay. Let me move to a different topic, the electricity tariffs. Yeah. You apply for these through NERSA, and they choose how much to give you at the end of the day. But today, the Minister of Electricity and Energy warns against what he calls energy poverty because of the escalating electricity tariffs. What is Eskom's attitude to that warning by the minister? Because I'll tell you why he's probably worried about this. He has previously quoted the situation in Kenya, and I'm choosing to go to the continent, not even going beyond to Europe, where people are suffering terribly because of the cost of energy. That is now coming closer to home. Kenya is flaring up. That's what's worrying the minister. That's why I'm asking you the question. How worried are you about this warning?
Koli, the issue of affordability is something that we are besieged with all the time as Eskom whenever we have to go and do another tariff application. The issue of cost-reflective tariffs is something that we've been besieged with for quite some time. The issue of municipality debt, the minister touched on it. All these issues are very important. And we are at the point now where we're saying there has to be some fundamental conversations within the country of how we make Eskom financially viable, at the same time enabling the economy to grow without the burden of high electricity tariffs. You will recall that we are currently going through a National Treasury debt relief program. Part of the reason why we are where we are is because we've not been able to raise appropriate funds from the sale of electricity given the price paths that we had followed. So there's a conversation to be had here. There's a conversation to be had about the role that Eskom plays in ensuring that we provide the backbone of the supply in the face of changing supply technologies and renewables coming in. Who carries the can for providing that insurance, and what are the appropriate tariff mechanisms that should be in place? And the minister is full of energy. The minister is definitely going to provide the leadership in ensuring that the appropriate conversations are taking place. We need those conversations. Our distribution business is owed close to 76 billion rands by municipalities. We cannot run this business by going to court with one municipality after another. It is definitely showing that this is not sustainable. And I'm just happy that having dealt with the issue of the energy availability factor in the way that we did, we need to now channel our energies as a country to once and for all deal with the systemic issues that are lying within the Munich debt, the pricing path, and everything else, so that once and for all we can have a very good basis to start off as we do these electricity reforms that are underway.
The underinvestment at these municipalities, and these are the power distributors. What is it that you can help with? In fact, are you able to help at all given your financial position?
Look, are we able to help at all given the constitutional authority that they have as things stand? These are some of the things that are on the way. The municipalities use electricity for revenue generation, which revenue is directed to other services that are important for their areas. We need to have a conversation. All of this is clearly not sustainable. And we also need to have a conversation about how the reinvestment that is so desperately needed at the last miles towards customers can come about. Otherwise, we're going to sit in a situation where there's a lot of generation, adequate transmission capabilities through, but we can't get the power to the end user, which is where it matters. So that part is going to be tackled now. I have confidence that the minister will lead us in this process. I'm also confident that all the stakeholders affected by this are actually quite keen to have this conversation. Yeah. We've spent a lot of time between March and May engaging with multiple sectors to start setting the ground and laying the ground up for this conversation here.
If my figures are correct, 78 billion is what is owed to you by municipalities. What do you have to do as Eskom to make sure that these monies are recouped? If not, how does it affect this relationship?
Yeah, I actually had the minister today saying this money is not there. The municipalities are not sitting with it in their pockets, many of them. They don't have it. they've either not collected it or they've actually used it for something else. We use the law, we go to courts, try to compel municipalities to pay us. Some of the municipalities have come forth and actively partnered with us so that we can help them run that part of their business and do the collections on their behalf. There are quite a number of interventions that are required here. Some of them emanating, some of them as simple as managerial capabilities where the municipalities needs to be assisted, but it's not a sustainable approach that we need to take. And we believe that if we take this concerted effort of relooking holistically at what's bringing this pain point, we'll find a way out of this. And it may mean that some of the hard positions that all stakeholders have taken may need to be reviewed and revisited.
When you talk about hard positions, what does that mean in practice? In my head right now, I want to ask you a question whether Eskom is prepared to do a debt write-off. I mean, 78 billion is a lot of money.
No, Eskom cannot afford to do debt write-offs. Already as we are being assisted by National Treasury. Let's be honest about this. One way or the other, the South African public is carrying this cost through National Treasury or through the tariff structures. We need to get to a point of reasonableness and find lasting solutions. And clearly, I think the ground is fertile for that.
Corruption. Today, you announced the appearance of an employee of Eskom alongside a service provider. Yes, they appeared at two different courts. This is about the Hendrina power station. They are charged with defrauding the utility to the tune of 600,000 rand. How difficult is it to root out corruption at Eskom?
It's work in progress. A lot of work has been done internally over the last year in particular to understand the modus operandi. As management, we have a responsibility of improving the controls once we identify where gaps exist, and then also to do consequence management. I think we're playing catch-up in some instances, and you'll see improvements in, for instance, our coal handling systems is completely revamped. We're going to use a lot of technology to ensure that we get what we pay for, and that we can cut out opportunities for any intervention between the source and the power stations. Internally, within our procurement processes, we're paying a lot of attention in areas that are clearly indicating that they've been the playground of malfeasance by removing the latitude and the freedoms that existed in those spaces, strengthening controls. And of course, follow-up, we have to also do the aspect of consequence management and taking action.
You speak in technical terms, and I'll forgive you for that, because these issues, for you, they are high level, but we need to bring it down to something that the public can digest. Yeah. So when I read that statement, this is an Eskom employee who clearly was working with this service provider, and what they did was to essentially steal the valve from the very same power station, I guess, handed it to the service provider so that the service provider in turn sells it back to Eskom in order to benefit. As a result, Eskom loses this 600,000 rand. How do you make sure that those opportunities are closed down?
Yeah, so we're introducing new systems in terms of our warehouse management, where we're using a lot of technology for our stores management as part of the controls. This is the point that I'm raising. When we realize where the gaps are, we then look at solutions of improving on the controls. But we're also taking action. Clearly, I actually signed off on a press statement this afternoon. It's important that we also come out on record and indicate what actions is being taken so that the public can understand that we're not sitting on our laurels. It's one case. You will see other cases as we go through, as we progress them, working with the authorities. There's quite a lot of authorities working with us. They are well advanced in terms of the work they're doing in that space. And we'll continue to do both beefing up of the controls, but also making sure that we root out the individuals and suppliers that are taking part in the space here.
Talking about individuals, there is a suspended head of security at Eskom right now. Karen Pillay is her name. This is a precautionary suspension, we understand. What's the status of that case? What is it that she's done? But more importantly, how soon does this matter get resolved? Because the outcry half the time about these cases is that the person is on suspension, on full pay.
Yeah, the intention was to really expedite the investigations that were done internally. It is regrettable that they've taken a little bit longer because of the complexity associated with this. And as soon as those are done, clearly there'll be the next steps being taken through. I must also point out that this matter is actually the CCMA at the moment. It's also being heard there. So the organization is focusing on concluding this work that surrounds the investigation in order for us to get to a point of some form of a decision. We understand that it's actually a year that she's been on suspension. It's quite a long period of time, but such is the nature of some of these activities that are being studied now. Yeah.
We've got to remind the public what it is that she is alleged to have done.
This deals with a security contract that was put in place some 18 months ago, 2 years ago, what is being checked now is the processes followed in making that appointment and the circumstances that necessitated that appointment on an emergency basis. As I said, it is a matter that is being dealt with, it's being investigated internally. It's also a matter that is being engaged upon at the CCMA, and I'd like to leave it at that point. We do understand that we need to conclude it very quickly. Everybody is impatient that we do what is right in this instance.
The just energy transition. It's a different topic now. This was at the lips of just about every government leader in the recent past. Where are we in this country given the monies that have been pledged? Not given yet, pledged. Yeah. Now we need to monetize those pledges so that Eskom benefits in some way. Where are we? Those
monies are actually loans to aid with the transition from a coal-based electricity supply basis. We just have to remember those are loans and not and free giveaways. We've said two things since March. The first one that we said is that we remain committed to our own emissions targets of 2030. We said that we'll reach that target differently. We will not shut down additional power stations between now and 2027 as initially anticipated, because we have two risks to manage. The first one is attaining stable performance of our generation fleet, and the second one, getting the projects of renewables that are under construction to be operationalized. We have lacked these two assumptions, since the time the commitment for shutting down the stations were made. These two assumptions have actually not materialized as anticipated. And so for us to move forward and shut down the power stations will be placing the country back in a position of electricity deficit from a supply-demand perspective. We have, however, said that whilst we delay the shutting down of these power stations, we'll continue to work towards our target of 2030 by a combined effort from the rest of our fleet. And we are currently actually in discussions with the affected parties that deals with this funding to show how exactly we arrive at that point. Yeah. This should enable us to have access to those funds. We actually want to use those funds to begin to prepare the landscape in the areas that are going to be affected by the shutdown. There's a lot of value chain protection that we need to do. There are jobs there. We need to have some repurposing and repowering. We need to do those initiatives now and avoid the situation that we ended up with Komati, where we have shut down the station and the economic activity in the area was decimated. We cannot afford to do this for 4 other power stations in the same district municipality. It will be catastrophic. We have learned from this exercise. We are driving our energies now to actually preparing for the transition in a just way.
Yeah. Final question to you, and very briefly if you can. Yeah. You're back at Eskom, having left in a not so nice way. There are some within that institution that may be running scared to say, this man is possibly going to come after us. Are you back to settle some scores?
Toli, I'm a leader of everybody in Eskom. I really take my responsibility as a chief executive very seriously. It will be childish of me to actually not realize the authority vested within me. I need to lead that team to reestablish the entity that it once was, and we'll work with all those who want to be there. This is why I'm spending time connecting with staff. Our people are capable, they are great. There may be others who are not so well motivated. We'll work on them, and we'll work on them together with our leadership as a collective. We have no time for that. We have got a company to fix and a country to fix.
Dan Morokane, CEO at Eskom. Thank you very much for your time. So I'm going to ask you to remain where you are while I link to a break. When we return, we'll bring another discussion, very important one. Judge, or should I say, the man who used to be called Judge John Hlophe. He is the subject of much conversation today, all because he's back in Parliament. Well, he has been appointed to the Judicial Service Commission. What is this about and why the outcry? We'll get to grips with that.